All right, we are live on the Dynasty Dumpster Fire podcast. Today is Wednesday, October 4th. So we're into October, our first episode of October. And this is your host, Tanner, and I'm joined again by Marty. Marty, how is your week going so far?
Good, dude. It's been very much pleasant. I can't complain. The weather here out in Virginia has been amazing. It's been a nice start to October.
It's a little warm for me, but next week's supposed to get cold. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, to be honest. I like cold. Um, so what we decided to do today is we're going to kind of just try to put out episodes that we really want to get out, since it looks like I'm only going to be able to upload about once a week here. Something that we really like doing that we haven't gotten out in a bit are the trade shows, and we've had a couple of leagues that have been pretty active since the last time we did one of these. We also have in-season context now, and then we can kind of discuss how each of these teams are doing and what our goal is for these teams that we traded with. So we're going to go through about 6 of them today, chat a little bit about it, go over who we think, which side we would take for the other person's trade, etc., and kind of go through it that way. So sound like a plan to you, man?
Let's do it.
So again, if you're watching, I'm going to put this on YouTube as well. So my YouTube channel link will be in the description. So you'll have visuals of the trades themselves. For those listening on podcast networks, we'll basically describe the context of the trade before we start talking about it, meaning both sides, as well as the league format and settings as well, to make sure that we are keeping those people in mind. Okay. So this first one was one of the most recent ones that were made. So this was one that I made in a 12-team Superflex PPR Start 9 league, one of the ones that Marty and I have been in the longest together. It's a relatively shallow league in terms of bench space and level of starters, but it's a league where the high-end players are pretty successful. So just the trade itself is I received Josh Allen, Tyler Lockett, AJ Brown, and a 4th rounder, and sent away Trevor Lawrence, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, and a 3rd. So this was a pretty big trade. And before I kind of give my thought process into it, what were your first initial reactions to this one as you talked me through it, Marty?
Well, I was a big proponent for it. You downgraded for a Seattle receiver just by age, doesn't mean by ability. And you also took a little step down with your young receiver, CeeDee Lamb, for AJ Brown, but it's going to pan out for you this season, especially since you're competing again. And obviously, Trevor Lawrence has not been what we wanted, and I'm a big fan of Josh, so I have zero complaints. I was on board. I remember this discussion very well, and I was pretty pleased to see that it went through.
Yeah. So context for a little bit about why I made this deal. I've basically decided on this team since last season. Somehow won last season, but my team wasn't really all that good. It was decent. I had some good assets, but I've really upgraded my team a lot this year. I made that move for Justin Jefferson. I've obtained Jamar Chase on this team. I have Lamar Jackson. I've gotten lucky with some other players like Montgomery and Swift coming into their own. So this team felt like it was already ready to all in to compete, and I felt a little bit weak at quarterback with Trevor Lawrence. Although he's a good future asset, he feels safe. He's not performing. And I'm in a window where I think I need somebody that's going to be smashing. So Josh Allen is that type of guy. I've kind of figured out that he was actually available. When a guy like that becomes available, you jump on it, right? What is your outlook on Josh Allen? Do you think he's got? I mean, do you think he's a locked in top 3 dynasty quarterback for the next 5 years? What are you thinking there?
I think so, unless something horrendous happens with his relationship with Buffalo. I don't really foresee any issues with his athleticism or abilities to lead the team as a captain or quarterback. It's just the off the field stuff that anything can happen. So, but I love him.
And I think Buffalo right now, in my opinion, is the best team in the NFL. It worked out well for me this week. This was my first week with this team with some of these assets. So AJ Brown obviously smashed, and then same with Josh Allen. I'm gonna miss CeeDee Lamb. He was kind of like he was one of my favorite assets on that team. I kind of traded for him before he had his blow up last year, and was kind of had to have been watching that and seeing that happen. And then same with DK Metcalf. I also was a big fan of DK Metcalf, but that's what it took to get it done, and that's the trade that was made. And as of now, on that league, I'm 3-1 and scored the most points in the league 2 weeks in a row. So, knock on wood, if I can stay healthy, I think I'm a real competitor, and I think that deal definitely helps. So, any last minute thoughts on this one before we move forward?
No, I think we addressed everything.
Okay. So, trade number 2 is a deal between you and I both, which is an interesting one that was made maybe a month or so ago. It was right at the beginning of the season, so I think it was week 2 because it was after Rodgers tore his Achilles. The trade is in our other Dynasty League that's a little deeper, so the benches are significantly deeper. Same format in terms of scoring, 12-team Superflex PPR. This one is a tight end premium, and it has 10 starters. The trade, before we start getting into it, I'll just quickly go over what it is, and then I'm going to let you kind of talk through this one a little bit. I obtained Chris Olave, my 2024 first back in Jahan Dotson, and I sent you Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, and my 2026 first. So you want to kind of talk us through how this deal went down and why it happened from your end?
Well, I felt you were panicking over Zach Wilson, and I would too if I was in that position, especially with where you drafted him. We both got Wilson and Olave in the second round each. Yours was, I think, the second pick of the second round, and I was the later end of it. I do not remember which, but it's just like that in the real NFL draft when they were both drafted. One was right before the other. But I've been really impressed with the Ohio wide receiving core and what they've been producing. So, with his talent and athleticism, I didn't care. I just liked the full future potential. And Zay Flowers at the time, I think he just had a mediocre first week, and we had not a clue what was in store yet, nor did we really know that Bateman and Odell really are fragile.
So, yeah, and maybe I was freaked out a little bit because I thought I was just worried about Garrett Wilson that season, and I thought, I just was worried I wasn't going to get what I wanted, and I feel that him and Olave are pretty equal. Dotson and Flowers, both young upside guys, but the big catalyst for me is I wanted my first back because I felt, and this is pretty early to make this decision, but I kind of felt I was going to kind of jump into a more of a rebuild here for next year, maybe like a 1-year punt, because I just didn't feel strong at certain positions, specifically running back, and then having Garrett Wilson and even Chris Olave as your wide receiver 1, you might be able to win some games, but I don't know if it's going to be something where you're going to be competitive all season or really, really be in the conversation. So I wanted my first back. Since then, I've made some other moves, racked up about 3 of them. So I'm loaded up on 24 capital. Got my 25 first back in another deal as well. So I'm ready for the future in that league. And your team, I think it also helped your team with what you had going on as well. I'm excited to see what Flowers becomes. And Wilson's actually not looked bad, huh?
No, he's a beast. He's just like CeeDee Lamb. He's very reliable.
Zach Wilson actually looked a little bit better last week. So I don't know if that was a fluke or if that's what we can expect moving forward, but that's pretty promising. Dotson, I don't know what's going on with him. I think the targets are just, it might be a Sam Howell thing because McLaurin's also not having huge games. He's had a little bit more success, but you're a Commanders fan. What do you think the deal with Dotson is? He's playing lots of snaps, right? And getting some targets.
Yeah, it's a slow start. I mean, they obviously are all still fresh. Give it another, we'll see Thursday, tomorrow, the Thursday night game against Chicago is home. It's going to be great weather, so I see no issues. If he can connect there and get the ball rolling, I see a wonderful continuation from there on. But it could take some time. I mean, all young quarterbacks takes time. I mean, if you look at C.D. Stroud with how he alternates between Tank and Nico, it's one or the other, just like Jalen Hurts is with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. It's never both. It's always one or the other. So I think there's stuff in store for Dotson. I think they need to make McLaurin almost invisible, which is very difficult. It seems like for a lot of secondaries. I don't know why. No one can make him invisible on the field.
Yeah, so I'm hoping he improves because he hasn't done much this year. But we saw it a lot last year with limited action. So
and
hopefully
worse quarterbacks.
with worse quarterbacks. I think I was really panicked on. I was really worried about Sam Howell until after week 3 when they got smacked by Buffalo and he threw 4 interceptions. But then now we kind of just see how good Buffalo is because he looked better next week. So we'll see. We'll see how that'll be interesting to see how that how Washington looks the rest of the season. Moving on to deal number 3. This is another deal that was made in that same league that I was talking about earlier, the 12-team Superflex Start 9 league, the league where I just traded for Josh Allen. I was finally able to get out from Kyle Pitts. He was one of the only players that I drafted originally on that team in the startup in the very beginning of the league. And I was just holding and hoping for something that I just don't know if is going to happen anytime soon. And he just didn't really fit the build of my team. So I targeted a rebuilding team, someone that's playing for 2025, according to him, since he's loaded in 2025 first-round picks. I sent away Kyle Pitts, Josh Palmer, Rashid Shaheed in my 26 second and received Michael Pittman back and a 2024 first, which also happens to be Marty's. So before we get started on the deal itself, give me your thoughts on Kyle Pitts as a dynasty asset and tight end.
Well, you remember me. I don't think we definitely don't have it in this today's discussion, but I also got rid of my share. I mean, I wasn't a fan. I don't know. It's definitely the quarterback. Maybe it's the system. I don't know. I know Ritter's trying to find himself in the NFL. I get it. Every young quarterback takes time, but it's not it. It's not it. What is Juwan?
Why is Jonnu Smith? Yeah, why is he scoring points?
Yeah, he's actually relevant for a change. It's gnarly. I don't think I've heard his name since he was a Titan.
I don't know if they just don't know how to use Pitts or if he's not healthy. I don't know. I mean, he's getting some targets, but goodness, man. Why would you spend the 4th overall pick on a tight end and you're not using him? It just seems a little bit backwards to me in terms of, why that happened. So, in terms of the other assets, I picked up Palmer off the wire since it's a shallow league. He wanted Palmer because of the injury to Mike Williams, which I can understand. And then Shaheed is a young player with some flashes of potential, so I think he wanted that as well. You like Michael Pittman?
Oh, dude, I love him. Team? To be honest, I regret giving him up, not Judy. I made an executive decision before we even entered this season to keep Judy and send off Pittman, and that was a dumb decision. I misread the analytics. I really thought Richardson was not going to be that good, and maybe the receivers of Florida were not strong enough to catch his passes. I don't know. He is good, and Pittman has benefited. Just like any good quarterback really benefits those locker rooms. It's been awesome. And I don't think he's elite, but I think it's helping him at least for your value, and he's makes him fantasy relevant.
He's pretty consistent. Last week had a down week, but overall, in terms of historically what he's been able to do, I'm going to take a look real quick just to see. He was a top 17 receiver. I'm sorry, let me take that back. A top 24 receiver all 3 of the last season. Yep. So he was in that wide receiver 2 range. So I think, if he can if he's soaking up targets like he did the first 3 weeks of this season, I think he's in for a potentially higher finish than that. But he's the wide receiver 4 on my team. And I got a first. That's my only first for the next 3 years since my team is completely on the player side of investment. So I wanted to have something in my back pocket if things hit the fan and, if I need to buy something later, or maybe I just want to be involved since I had 0 rookie picks this last year. I kind of felt a little left out, that was the thought process there. But, and you'll see why in a second, why I was able to get rid of Kyle Pitts and feel pretty good as well with another trade that was made involving tight ends. So any other thoughts here on any of the pieces or context of the league here?
No, dude. I think you did well. I love the securing of that.
All right, so I'm going to let you take this one away. Let me just introduce it real quick, and this one's all you. This was something that was done even more recent than the first one. So this is our same league, okay, same format and settings. It's a quarterback deal, so 2 quarterbacks being moved. So you shipped away Jared Goff and received back Daniel Jones and a 26 second in return.
So, after Monday Night Football, we always say to buy the players that are trending, buy the players that are hot. And my philosophy is take a chance on, some of the more crappier players. especially if they have historical track record to prove that there is some value. Somehow he secured 160 million over the offseason, so he's stable with New York. So the first thing that's going to happen before anything is they're going to probably change coaches before they change quarterbacks. They still got to pay him, so I like that, and I like where he started before the season started. He had really high value, higher than Goff. Goff is ascending because he keeps winning, and he's feeding them balls, but for fantasy value, all he does is pass the ball. However, when the defense and every other piece of, that Detroit Lions is kicking, he's not going to really be needed. This isn't like Kirk Cousins, where it's only offensive with Minnesota. I mean, this team is well-rounded, and they're in discussion for the playoffs for a reason. So I was like, let me send him off while he's oversaturated for value, get a future second in 2026, and Daniel Jones, who actually has upside with rushing. I rarely see Goff running. I mean, that's why they have the running backs they do. I mean, so.
And your quarterback room is somewhat secure. You said you feel like, although it's young, you have a very upside, sort of risky quarterback room, in my opinion, but it could pan out. So you have Stroud and Sam Howell, and now you have Daniel Jones. And I agree, he does offer a lot more with his legs. We saw it last season. I just am not sure what is up with them right now, because they have the worst offense in the league right now in lots of metrics. And I don't know quite what's going on there. So gamble.
But you have to admit, though, it is a gamble, but system-wise, maybe it's not working for him. I know they had the same coach from last year, if I remember correctly. But things change, and, philosophies do too. But anyways, big gamble. That's what this is all about. And if it pans out, you look like the winner on the other side.
Yeah, if this is, again, playing with extra quarterbacks, taking the on top piece there and trying to taking something on top and buying an asset that you think will improve in value. So time will tell what happens with Daniel Jones, but I like it, and I think he gets back to being a little bit closer to what we saw last season by the end of the year.
Yep, and advice to anybody who's listening: if you do see a bad game from a quarterback and you think they're going to bounce back, I heavily encourage purchasing, especially when their value dips.
Yeah, it's very.
Look what Justin Fields, like, everybody could have got him cheap. Don't get me wrong, he may not have a job at the end of the season, but at least for fantasy value, that's awesome, 35 points.
He went for a second in our league a while ago, but last year when he was terrible. And then he went in a huge deal to a team that was quarterback needy, that thought they were a competitor, that involved all kinds of pieces and, multiple firsts and all this other stuff. And now look, he's back to, some people don't even want to give a late first for him anymore. So this market fluctuates very quickly. Dynasty is definitely seems like it's becoming more redraft focused sometimes, which is interesting, but keeping an eye on the market is definitely fascinating. And you've got two guys ascending in different directions, ascending and descending with this trade. So betting on regression from Goff and ascension from Jones seems to be, what you were going for here. So time will tell how that pans out for you. But age-wise, security-wise, seems like Jones will have a job for a while, and seems like he'll be a part of your team moving forward with some upside.
Yep.
So trade number 5. This is another deal that was made recently. So we just had like a trading spree with lots of members of this same league in the last couple weeks. An interesting one here, George Kittle, my former tight end on my championship team that I had until last week. You sent away along with your third this upcoming year, and you received back the young first-year wide receiver out of Los Angeles, Quentin Johnston. So I want to talk us through this one, give us the context and what the move did for your team in your opinion.
Well, for the move for my team at the moment, nothing. But this is post Mike Williams getting his ACL tear. There's a lot of speculation. I assume Josh Palmer would take on the job because he's done it before, but that didn't mean Quentin Johnston wouldn't get a kick at it. And to be wide receiver 3 and eventually mold in there with 31-year-old Keenan Allen, I'd like that. I like the odds. He's big. He's fast. They spoke highly of him. The analytics look good. Of the 3 tight ends that went first, JSN, Quentin Johnston, and I'm blanking on the third. Who's the third? It's not Zay Flowers. Who was the one before him? Addison, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 were the ones that everybody talked highly about, and they're all great, but I was like, let me get a share. I mean, I already got CJ Stroud. It's basically like getting a first from this past draft, and I had Sam Laporta, so I didn't need another tight end to sit on my bench.
He played a lot this last game, which is good. Johnson did. He just didn't get a lot of targets. But they were blowing out Vegas, if I
Yep.
remember correctly, right, for
Yep.
most of that game. So, I think he's. I don't think. I think it's early to panic on him. We haven't liked what we've seen so far from him. Um, Same as Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has done absolutely nothing, like on the same level as Johnston. But you just have to bet on that offense, and you want to bet on the big, prototypical alpha, tall wide receiver who seems like he could step into that Mike Williams role. And
Mm-hmm.
Mike Williams just obviously can't stay healthy. So I think Justin Herbert can support 2 or 3 receivers and make them relevant every year. Austin Eckler is also going to get a piece of that pie. So I think it's going to be Johnston and Palmer kind of vying for that wide receiver 2 role in the offense. And if Johnston can show something, this trade definitely made sense for you,
Yeah.
specifically getting rid of an aging tight end and a non-tight end premium, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And Kittle is on an offense that doesn't seem like it seems like it's just never going to be, it's always going to be somebody different hitting if they're all healthy. So anything else to add on this one?
No, like we said in the earlier trades, you got to gamble. That's the best part about Dynasty.
So I think this is the final one here. This is the, we probably maybe should have done this one first, but this is the one that gave you George Kittle in the first place. And looking back at this, I'm glad I did it because it secures me for a good bit of time in the future at the tight end position. And that was the one weakness I felt that I had. I had Kittle. It just wasn't. Kittle again is older, has an injury history, and doesn't he's hit or miss. Whereas I think the receiver or the tight end that I received is a little bit more consistent. Although he had a bad last week, but I got TJ Hockenson from you, who you had picked up in a trade earlier in the offseason, I believe, or a little bit. I think it was before the season started.
Yeah.
And I sent away Kittle, a 26th fourth. You had to gouge me for that fourth for some reason, but I just accepted it because other people were trying to get that deal, and I just wanted to get him secured, and a 26th first. So I offered you Kittle in the first because I felt like Hockenson was somebody that could put me over the edge at the tight end position and has some youth and is in that top dynasty tight end discussion. So what's your thoughts on the deal as a whole, and then why what you think it did for both squads?
Well, he was my starter until I started actually realizing after week 3, Sam Laporta is legitimately really good. And I guess without Jameis Williams, we'll find out this coming week how, and it might take some time for him to fit in the system, but it comes down to how many touches that take away from Laporta. I felt fine for the short yardage. He's very reliable, and it seems like that's their system, especially when they're blowing teams out. They run the ball, and if they don't want to, they throw it short, and typically they're not throwing it far to Amron. So I was thinking to myself, let's push these tight ends out. Hawkinson's been serving me well. Let's get some value from him because he's really valuable right now. I got a first in Kittle who has great value. Sent him away for Quentin Johnson, and I got a fourth, and all I had to pay was a third, and I didn't think it was a bad deal. But I'll be honest, dude. If I didn't pick up Sam Laporta, I don't think I would have ever traded Hockenson.
Yeah, I was wondering when you put him on the block. I'm like, because he would have been your tight end of the future. Yeah, because he's got, how old is he? 26, I think, 25.
Yeah.
He's pretty young especially for tight end. I mean, we've seen some tight ends that can play until they're 30. I mean, Kelsey's pretty old and still successful. I know he's not Travis Kelce, but he gets targets in that offense. That offense passes a lot, and that offense, although they're losing games. For the most part, they're pretty explosive in terms of their passing games. So I wanted that to kind of lock up the theme of my team, which is younger but really good competitive pieces. That's kind of what my team is. Paying the first isn't great, especially when I didn't have many of them. That was my only one at the time. I have since gotten one back, which is cool. But you were talking to some other people about him, and maybe FOMO kind of snuck in, and I was like, man, maybe I need to get in on this real quick. And
because I called you, if I remember correctly, and I asked you for help because I had 2 or 3 people, and then you were like, can I join the conversation?
I guess I was the highest bidder. I think you texted me. You're like, which one of these? And I'm like, well, hang on now. And I'm glad you saw it before that got accepted, because you had literally sent out deals to the other 2 people, I think, and you were just waiting on one of them to accept. So,
but how do you feel? A question for you, because now you have both top receiving options for the Vikings, Jefferson and Hockenson. I would agree, I would argue that Hockenson has more, value than Addison or Osborne, especially right now this season. And I don't, maybe it can change, but as it stands right now, he's the second option. And they're both good options for depending whether you want to go deep or short or deep, because they both play both roles. It's just you have both of them, and if the Vikings suck, then they both suck.
Yeah. So I felt fine because, again, one of the highest passing offenses in terms of volume in the league. The reason I wanted to do that is because even though it's not a tight end premium, I feel like there are just teams that have tight ends that are good, and then there's teams that don't. And when somebody becomes available, people will buy the tight ends, as we just saw in the previous deal.
Yeah.
The guy gave up. I mean, he wanted Kittle right away as soon as you put him on the block. So
Yep.
we see the teams that are competitive that do not have a good tight end. One of them has Waller, who's struggling, and I assume he wants in, or they want in on a different tight end. We see somebody starting Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
So it's not pretty at the tight end position. And if you don't have Andrews, Hockenson, Kittle, Kelsey, I guess Laporta, the young guys, and not even Kincaid or Mayer right now, because they're not even producing. So if you don't have one of those guys, you might as well just punt the position. And Njoku's not doing anything. Freiermuth isn't being
He's
used.
out
Andy's
for 2
hurt.
to 3 weeks now.
Andy's hurt. So just looking at that tight end list, it's just pretty ugly. So I just wanted to get somebody that I felt good about long term. Even for example, like I said, the number one team in the league you traded Kittle to, he was starting somebody disgusting beforehand. I don't even remember who it was.
Was it Njoku?
Oh, it might have been. It was Higbee.
Yeah.
He was starting Higbee every week.
That's what it was.
The third place team is starting Andrews. So you see what a trend here. Fourth place is starting. He's the one that has Njoku, and he's on a bye. So he has Njoku and Everett. So the point is, the tight end position is scarce, and you have one or you don't. So I wanted to ensure I did. We have a team starting Hunter Henry. So again, you get my point. But we had some fun trades to talk about here. Overall, I like all of these deals, especially I think it was cool that we made a couple of them that got to be in this show. And we will definitely have another trade show coming soon, because both of us are what you would call trade addicts at times, and just want to constantly churn and make our teams better, or get this player that we have strong feelings about. So we will definitely do another one of these soon. Marty, it was fun chatting it up with you, man, as always, and I hope you have a good time at your Washington game tomorrow.
Hopefully, appreciate it.
Hopefully you guys have a good performance. It's Chicago, so
let me know if you see the Bob guy on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, are you? You have to tell me. Also, we'll have to talk about where your seats are and stuff. I want to hear about what you're doing. But
no, you betcha.
This was fun, and guys, again, stay tuned. Thanks for any kind of support and listening. I know it's been sporadic uploads, but we're trying to at least get something out a week, whether it be a trade show, whether it be a buy sell. Buy sell might be what we do next, since it's been a while since we've done that. So again, just stay tuned. Thanks for checking us out. And again, we'll see you next time on the Dynasty Dumpster Fire podcast.